Just and I'm speaking from my mobile and I'm presenting through my laptop. Okay. Pause me if you cannot hear me or I'm any doubts. Okay. I'm sharing my screen. Okay. Is it visible? Yeah. So the change detection in Angular. Before that, we'll just a brief description about this Angular and like how this Angular project is structured. Okay, in Angular, everything is about components, right? Everything will be represented as components, and Angular application is a tree of components, and each component has its own view. So, view of a component is directly related to its, both are directly related. So, if there is any change in the component data, uh, obviously it will be updated to our DOM, but how it works. Okay. So before going to like how it works, we might know this term called execution context because in our Angular application is of TypeScript code, right? So when we run our Angular application, it transpiles, right? It transpiles in our browser and it generates this output or view. But in and it will be converting to JS code. But in JS, by executing each and every line, so will they'll be creating a memory, right? For each and every variable initialization or a function initialization, the memory needs to be created and then it needs to be executed. But when it comes to this execution context, definitely this is an abstract concept because we cannot see and we cannot feel it. uh, I'll just briefly explain you this because just imagine like we'll be having this block. Okay. Memory and this one code. Okay. For each and every line or every block, this execution context will be created. Let's say we are initializing a variable, okay, where a equals to 2. Okay, it will generate a memory to the a first. Okay, a, and by default the undefined will be stored there. The initialization will not be done yet. After executing this a equals to 2 and then again it will return this in this next step, it will assign this a value to 2. Let's say there is a function, okay, which needs to be executed. For each and every function, a new execution context will be created in the code itself, like this. And again, because we'll be having a variable initialization or memory allocation in this functions as well, right? We'll be having variables in the functions as well. So even in this execution context, we'll have this memory and code blocks. And it goes on. Like after this function execution is done, this execution context will be deleted immediately from the parent execution context and it will jump onto the next line. And this happens in this way. We'll just run a sample example and I'll show you in the browser as well. Okay. So execution context is nothing but it consists of the current code which is being executed in our application. So this is just a sample project which I have taken. This is name and role, two form controls after giving this data in this inputs, I'll just add an employee and that will reflect here. And this is the static data which I already gave there. Okay, Control Shift I will be seeing this developer tools, right? We'll go to sources where our code will get executed, right? Here we can see a call stack here. Every execution context will contain this call stack. As the name it says, it's a stack. For each and every operation in our application, of it will be inserted into this stack, and right after the execution completes, it will be deleted from the stack. Let's say we have this add employee, right? I'm adding a debugger pointer here. Add employee. You can see here in this call stack, add employee method is inserted. And this is this block, and where it triggers, this add employee method triggers in this line, right? So with this, so after execution of this add employee, it should be eliminated from our call stack, right? Just to next step. And you can see after executing this add employee, it returned to this line and it is eliminated from this call stack. Add employee is eliminated. So in this way, our execution will be done. Our execution of this application will be done. I mean, this is totally behind scenes. We might be not aware of this, or we might not be like, we don't bother about much about this, right? So I just want to let you guys know about this. I have released this debugger and you see the call stack is empty because the entire program is executed and there is nothing left to be executed. This is execution context. And coming to this change detection, how this change detection works in Angular. Like we are updating some data in the component and it is reflecting in the view. It's nice, but how it is being done? So for this, Angular takes support from this zone.js library, in which for every execution block, it will create ng zone. So every block will be executed in its own zone called ng zone. So every block in our application must run whether it should be inside the zone or outside the zone. Okay. So these zones will be created for every execution of our application code. Okay. But what triggers change detection in our application? Like there are like initializing a variable or just calling a method. Does that trigger the change detection? No. I mean, the view needs to be updated. If there is a data or the variables which are used by the view in the of our component, then the change detection occurs, and then we can see like some changes happened in that component. So that is why it is reflected in the view. So this change detection mechanism triggers every time in our code. Like if are there any browser events like click event of a button or key up, key down, mouse over, and all like etc. All those events, and any HTTP request. If we made any HTTP request, then also this change detection will be happen. I mean, this change detection will be triggered from our entire application level. And also this micro tasks, set timeout and set interval. So whenever we run this block of codes, also this change detection will be triggered. I mean, without any manual intention, and it will be triggered by using these methods. Okay. So, but what happens, like what actually triggers this change detection? We have seen that, but how it triggers? So if we have executed a block of code in an Angular, and if and there is a change in that variable after some doing some work, or like on a click event or any API call, that variable got changed. I mean, the value of that variable is changed, or the reference of that object is changed, and that should reflect in the view. That is what a change detection's intention. And in our Angular, we have two change detection strategies, two types of change detection strategies, which is one is default, the other one is on push. So the default one, as it is default, we there is no need of mentioning this in our any our applications because it will be default. It traverses from root to bottom, like top to bottom of our Angular application components, and it traverses like whether any change is happened, like any state of the component is changed, whether the DOM needs to be updated or not because of that change is up. So that will be checked by the Angler with using this change detection strategies. So the example we have will just check this default strategy. The so here I have a component called this app component.html. In that app component.html, I have a form, okay, with two inputs, and there is one button add employee, and I'm submitting that, and submit I have this add employee form, right? And in that add employee form, I'm just simply, so I already have a variable called emps, and I have this data, three employees data. And on that add employee, I'm just adding the form value to the existing employees variable. And after that, I'm resetting it. And I'm passing this employees object to the child component called app child. Okay, and this is this input reference of this emps. We'll go through this child component as well. So after receiving this data, I'm just rendering through it for loop, and I'm just displaying this employee name and role. And in this child component, I have the other component as well, employee count. I'm just displaying this data length. Okay, employee component.html, I'm just displaying the count directly. So basically, our structure is this is root level, which is app component, and this is app child. And in this app child, I have another child component called employee count. So this is the structure I have in this for this example. Okay. Yeah. Here the default value of this employees is already been set, which is a static information, right? So that has been already passed to this app child component, and it is displaying those values, and this employee count is also 3. Right. Yeah, as it is default strategy, I'm not mentioning it anywhere. Okay, I'm just giving a new values here. Let me disable all the debuggers and add employee. So what we expect here by clicking on this add employee, the new values of this name and role needs to be added to this child component, and same this count now also needs to be updated here. Clicking on this add employee, nothing is done. Why? Sorry, I enable this here. Sorry, on push. Yeah. So after clicking on this add employee, you can see the values are passed here to this child component. I mean, added to this child component, and as well as to its child component as well, child's child component as well, right? So this is updated. So based on, because uh, it is a default mechanism, right? So when we have triggered this add employee event, like it, which is a click event, okay, so which means we are invoking this browser event listener here. So on this, the change detection strategy will be triggered from Angular, in Angular, from top to bottom here. It will check for the references in this component, like whether any component value has changed. Yes, the employee's value has been changed, and that is being passed to this child component. And there is also an employee count, like which we are using in this app child component, and that is passing through this employee count child. Okay, so it will traverse, it will, the employee count will, sorry, the change detection will trigger from top to bottom of our Angular application in default strategy. So let's take this on push. Okay, or yeah, we'll just change a code bit here. So here what we are doing, we are just updating the value of this employees array. So employees, there is an array, okay, which we are having these values of array of objects, okay, and we are pushing, which means like we are adding another object to this employees array, which is here we are updating the value of employee. We are not actually changing its reference, we are just updating the value. And you can see there is this below code. Here what we are doing, we are changing the reference of this employees variable. So here what I mean, by looking at this code, you can see a new array has been assigned to this employees. I mean, new array in the sense like it's this new array with these objects, this dot employees object, and adding this employees form value as well, which is like the reference of this employees object will be changed. Both does the same job, but assigning it is different. Like this is updating the value of this array, but it is changing the reference itself here. And coming to this on push strategy, uh, this on push strategy says it the change detection will run only once, okay, only once, whether it can be of this click event or any updation or uh, of this XML HTTP request or this set interval, right? On push strategy mainly says it is of check once. I mean, the updates will be checked only once, not every time. So, and also, whenever the check has happened in this, while we mention this as on push strategy, the input properties will be updated. I mean, the change will be detected only if the input properties reference has been updated, not just mutation. As you can see here, previously we are doing the mutation itself here. Okay, we'll just, we are just mutating this employees object and we are passing it to this input variable, right? And here this data, what we expect here is like the change needs to be updated there in our application. Add, I saved it, sorry. You can see the update has not been done here. I mean, the update is done. You can see the employee is added and this that has been assigned to this employees array as well, but it is not updated because the employees reference is not changed. It just mutated. That will not be detected in on push strategy. We should pass a new reference to the input object. That's right. Yeah. See, now we can see the updated value here and also this count. I hope you get this difference between the changing the reference and updating the objects. The on push will only trigger on push change detection will triggers only if the input properties objects will are changed. So references are changed. And we have few more methods in this on push change reduction strategy called this cd dot detect changes. I mean detect changes, mark for check, attach and detach methods like this. Yeah. The on push strategy, we have this change detector ref, which is like the base class. I mean, everything will be running behind, right? Definitely, if even if the change detection happened, a program like a code needs to be executed. Angular will holds the value of a variable or an object, its old value and current value, and it will compare if there is any change of the reference or this value is updated, and it will inform the change detection uh, program that the change has been detected so that the DOM needs to be updated. Okay, in that way, this change detector ref class helps us. So in this on push strategy, we have few more methods like, yeah, as I said, few more methods which can detect changes for us. Let's see. In this app.component.ts, I'm not willing to change the reference. Okay. I just want to pass the information here itself. I mean, I just want to mutate it. Employees.push. It is not updated. We have this method called update data button, right? So in this update data button, so I need to include event here. Update. Okay. Upon click on this update data, then we are fetching the data from the parent, the updated data, and then we are assigning it to the DOM. I mean, that data should be reflected in the DOM. In that update data, I have taken this change detector ref instance and I'm calling this detect changes method. So this did what does this detect changes method do? We have this component structure here in this way, right? This way, app children, employee count. So we are specifying that the change detector ref to call, I mean, to detect changes in this app child component here. So when we are calling this detect changes method, a change detection strategy will trigger, okay, from this component to its children. So the root level component change detection will not occur. But however, the change in this uh, I mean, like the data will not be updated in the DOM, but any update in that references, in this input properties references, will be taken from the parent. But the change detection will not be applicable to the root components in the detect changes when we call this detect changes method. Let's see that. That employee. And when I click on this update data, we are expecting that the added information needs to be updated here. And so as this employee count needs to be updated. Yeah, and it is updated. So there is one more method called this mark for check, and we are doing the same. Here I'm just doing it, and I'm doing the same here. I'm just adding some random. And data is not updated. When I click on this update data, I expect the same, like the data needs in the child components. But what is the difference between this detect changes and mark for check? So mark for check is like the change detection strategy will not be triggered when we call this mark for check. It will just refer make its components and its ancestors components dirty in the child's detection strategy, which means like I have called this mark for check in this child component, right? Then its ancestor is the app component, and when we run this mark for check, it will make its this component and its ancestor to mark dirty that they have been involved in this change detection mechanism. Update data, yeah, that is the, I mean, the updating the data is the what it does for both change detection, sorry, detect changes and mark for check. But there is this slightly a minor difference between those two, which is like for detect changes, the change will be detected to its component and its child's components. But for mark for check and also for detect changes, change detection strategy will be run. And for mark for check, the chain detection strategy will not be triggered, and it will make its component and its ancestors components dirty. That's the only difference here. And the other methods from this change detect ref, we have this attach and detach. Hmm, let's say this employee child component. I want to detach this component from the from the change detection. So whenever we run the change detection strategy in our application, this component will not be affected. So I have triggered this detach, right? So which means like even after the updation of the element, I mean updation of this object here, yeah, as you can already see, the employee count is not being displayed here because on the component load itself in the constructor, I am detaching it. So even it got this count from this its parents, it will be detached from the change detection, which means like the change will not be received. There is a change in this count, but it will not be affected to this component itself. And I'm adding employee. And after the update, only the app child component is updated. You can see we cannot see this employee count. Okay. I want to detach this component, and after some time I want to reattach. Like I want to pause the change detection for this component and I want to reattach it after some time. That's this code. So I took this set interval code. Okay. After 3 seconds of the page load, this code will be executed and I'm reattaching it to the change detection tree. And then I'm asking to perform this detect changes, which means a change detection mechanism will be triggered by this method. See, as you can observe here, initially this total employee count is not loaded. After 3 seconds, it got loaded. I can show you again if you miss it. See, there is no change. I mean, employee count. After 3 seconds, it got updated. And like the same, you can add and just update data. It will be I mean, there is no change in the updation logic. It's there is we have changed only the change detection mechanism of this employee count only, I mean attaching and detaching the component from the change detection tree. But however, like Angular has introduced a new tool to observe this change detection, because in our real life we'll be not having this simple projects, right? We'll be having a huge applications where there will be like a bundle of components, like a parent to child, child to child, there will be many components, right? If each child will be having like two more childs, and each two more childs will be having like a three more childs, like that the tree will be huge. So In that for such complicated issues, Angular has been introduced this new tool called Angular Dev Tools. Whenever this change detection has triggered in our application, it will show that a change detection cycle has been triggered in your application, and like what component is affected and how much time it has taken to load that component. Okay, this is like Angular DevTools plugin. After installing it on our Chrome, we can see this Angular tab here. And I click on this Angular. Yeah, you can see here. This is the screen will get loaded. So we'll be having two more tabs in this Angular. One is components and the other one is profiler. So this component will show us like the tree, component tree of our application. This is the app root component, and this is the form tag we have, and these are the input fields. And this is the child component, and this is the employee count component. Okay. So we can also search component here. So whenever we search the component here, we can see the properties and the input variables we have uh, in the component. Okay. And you can see in this employee count, I have an input variable, which is a count input difference. Like it is count, and its value is currently 4. I can actually go and change the value to its 9, and it will be updated in the DOM. And there will be no difference. I mean, we can do that. And if we click on this open source icon, we can see the actual code of this component, the TS file of this component. And the same way, we can go to this app child component. We have this data input, and it is an array which is having this 4 objects, and each object we have this DevOps, and that role will be updated. Yeah, that data will be immediately updated in our view the same way. Let's go to this profiler. So coming to this profiler tab, here we can see we need to record the uh, session of our application. Okay, whenever we run. So if we click on this button, uh, this uh, tools is trying to detect the changes, like how many number of cycles has been, like change detection cycles has been happened, like how many components are being triggered. You can see here, it is displaying a bar graph. Here you can see the one bar represents one change detection cycle has been triggered. Okay, and continuously this is being increased. What is being triggered? I click on this bar graph. You can see this is this employee count component. This change detection has happened in employee count component, and I click on it. You can see the total time spent is 0.2 milliseconds here. And this is the time in total time spent, and this is the parent hierarchy of this component. Why it is triggering so many cycles here? Let's check our code. Yeah, we have this set interval time block, right? So for every 3 seconds, this as we said, we spoke earlier, like the set interval and the set timeout, these macro tasks will also trigger our change detection cycles. So that is why it is being triggered. So we'll be in our real life scenarios, we'll be using set interval or set time many times, right? For each and every code, like whenever it is necessary, definitely I'll say like we'll be using this set interval or set timeout. But how to eliminate it from the change detection tree? I don't want to trigger this block of code involved in the change detection cycle tree. Okay, so we have this NZ zone. You can see the number of cycles are being like increasing 35. This will definitely uh, decrease our performance level of our application. So we should definitely take care of such scenarios. So in our Angular, we have this NG zone we spoke about, right? So we can run outside of the Angular, this block of code using this. So this. dot. I have imported this NG zone here. Like you can see this dot underscore NG zone dot run outside Angular. An arrow function. Yeah. If we run like this and let's see, and I'm starting the recording. Well, is there any other set timeout? Still running this employee count component. Catch. Oh, yeah. And now you can see the change detection has been not been triggered here. So here we are explicitly, even this, we are using the set time interval and we are running outside the Angular, but here we are explicitly asking our Angular to detect changes. So that is why the change detected cycles has been happened. Even if we use run outside Angular, we are asking it to detect the changes, right? So that is why change detection happened. Here you can see the app component. Okay, I have a change reduction has been triggered. What change reduction we have done here? This is this add event. This is the source of this change reduction cycle is input element, add event listener, the input tag. Okay, and the total time spent on this is 1.9 milliseconds, so that we can get to know like how much time has been spent on each component, so that we can improve the performance of our application as well. And you can see because of this ng model, and these are the like internal methods which will get called in our application, like when we call this ng model at this ng on changes method, and the total time spent is like 0.3 millisecond. And we can save this profile, and which means that this has been saved, this profiler. We can choose the file. You can see that a change reduction happened in that particular profile. We can see the details here, and we can stop the recording here, like clear the recording. Yeah, but the default, it will show us this bar chart, and we have this stream map. In the stream map will be showing like in this way. Total application is like 1100, and the app component spent 1100 millisecond, and the ng control status groups ng form, this is the total amount spent on each and every component. And this is like a tree map visualization. here and we go to this flame graph. Here you can see this is our entire application. And in this, the red one is the like the component which is affected in this change detection cycle. And these are the app child component and the employee component count component we have in our application, but they are not affected. You can see in other. If we click on the show only change detection, it will show only the components get affected by the change detection. Let's say add employee, update data. After updating data, we got this change detection cycle there. You can see actual component is affected and as well as employee component count component is also affected. And we click on this and the same again, like we'll be displaying the details of this employee count component, saying like how much time we have spent. Or like how can you can see in our application like not uh, each and every block will be rendered in our zones, right? If we take any set into time interval or any click event or so. So let's say I have removed this code as well. Okay. Trying to add data here. Add employee. Data is not reflected. But when I click on this update data, what is expected to be done here? Anyone? Nagaramya? Nagaramya, are you on the call? Uh, when I click on this update data, what should happen here? I have removed the change detection references here in this update method. What should be done if I click on this update data? I mean, what will be happen here in the view? Anyone?
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Why not? Why nothing happens?
Remote change detection method, right?
Yeah, but we already spoke like the change detection will be triggered even for click events, event listeners as well. Here we will perform this update data click event, right?
Hmm.
Definitely the change detection tree will be triggered uh, in our entire application, and it will definitely update these values. So I hope you got the point here. Mm, we spoke about all these methods and this Angular DevTools as well. Yeah, coming to this challenges of automatic change detection. So the change detection will happen like whatever event will triggers, right? Even this event listeners or HTTP request and all. And whenever the change detection triggered, NG zone is is responsible for that change detection. So our Angular application is dependent on that zone.js library. So if we have this multiple code blocks and there is no such rule like only one component will get rendered in our application, like there will be multiple components and this in that multiple components we might have this set timeout in like multiple places in the API call in multiple components, right? For each and every block of that code a new zone will be created and though that will be that code will be executed in the NG zone itself. So we are mostly dependent on this zone.js library. And this is the challenge here. And the other challenge, even when we click on this click event or mouse event, any key up or key down events, any event listeners, this change detection will get triggered, even if we don't want to perform the change detection on the component. Like even if we are not intended, like we don't want the change detection there, but the change detection will happen even if the data is not updated in our DOM, like there is no such logic in our application to update the DOM, the change detection will perform in background. Same for the macro tasks as well. So these are the challenges. So and also we have our most happening nightmare, expression changed after it has been checked error. I hope everyone will get this error when you are working. So in our Angular application will be run in two modes, development mode and production mode. So have you ever seen this error in production environments in your real time experiences? Like anyone seen this error in production mode?
Not in production, in development mode, but I
Okay,
just
what
neglected it.
okay, what do you think like this what causes this error? What do you think?
So once the data load, uh, we say, for example, take CSI timesheets. So once it will loads all the data, it will check whether the I mean particular week has a date. Then if it doesn't have the date, it should show like it is not selected
Mhm.
on the
Okay.
change on the change part. I'm getting this error.
Mhm. So basically, the error itself is saying like expression has changed after it has been checked, which means like the
Yes,
DOM is already loaded, and after the expression is checked, the value of that expression has been changed. That's what it's
exactly.
referring to, right?
Yes,
But on what basis the check will be done? So in development mode, the change detection tree will run two times. Okay, so for the first time, it will render our that value. Let's say there is a variable here. Okay, saying some assigning like there is a name and it assigns Nuthana. Okay, and we are displaying that name in the DOM. Okay, but after some reasons, okay, and there is this if variable. Okay, I'm changing that if block. Okay, to that true to false after it has been checked. I mean, like after the change detection has been performed on that particular component, we are changing the value. Then we'll be
yes,
facing this issue.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. Let's quickly check an example for that. Yeah. We have this variable load equals to false. Okay. And I want to display text and if load is true. Mm, yeah. After this entire component is invoked, like after every initialization is done in this after view init, I'm setting this load to true. Okay. Which means just a second. So which means by default, this text should not be displayed. Right? After ng, after view init, this text in the HTML should needs to be displayed. But here what we are doing, we are changing the value of this load after the change detection has been triggered, which means like after ng, after view init. Right? Save it. Yeah, you can see the error here. Expression has changed after it has been checked. This will
Yes,
occur only in our development mode. You can see here Angular is running in the development mode, right? This will occur only in the development mode because the change detection will trigger two times. I mean, the program will be run once, the change detection program will be run once, but in if development mode is true, the comparison of old value and true value will be done twice in development mode. But in some cases, like we'll be checking like the how everything is fine in our view, right? Nothing has been changed, but only the error is occurred, and we don't know, like we know that expression has been changed, but when that expression has been changed and why it is changed, right? I mean, there will be no difference in our view. You can see there are no issues in rendering the view, right?
Yes.
Mm. But yeah, these are the challenges of this automatic change detection. How we can overcome those solutions? Uh, by using this default change detection strategy in for every component, like we'll be having many parent child components in our application. In here I took very small example, but we are having like we'll be having many parent child components, and for that the change detection strategy is default, which means for each and every change, like any change of the state change in a component, the change detection strategy will run entire application from top to bottom, and it will check which component state has been changed, and then it will update in the DOM, which causes our performance, right? So by using this on push detection strategy, we can eliminate the change detection checks for each and every component in from top to bottom. We'll be using this on push detection strategy when a change is needed, when we need to change the view. By using this on push detection strategy, we can achieve that. And if we use on push detection strategy means we have to manually check the changes. I mean, automatic change detection will not get triggered. And also detaching the components from the change detection. Let's say we have three childs here, like a parent with, you can see here app, child, 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 right? There is a component here which is not dependent on any of these inputs. It's just a component, okay, a child component, which is not dependent on any of this input data, parents input data, okay? But we are just loading the component, which means like the data which has been affected on its parent component is not needed by the child component. Then we can detach the component so that the change detection will not be triggered for this component, and then we can increase the performance of the component, like the change detection cycle will be removed, right? We can improve the performance. And also, yeah, sorry, we should run code inside and outside zone. So if there is a really change which needs to be detected in the component, then we should run the component. Like there will be some third party libraries we'll be using, right, in our application. Let's say like a sync fusion, like for pie charts or bar graphs. Okay. For that, there will be some event listeners. Okay. For each and every event listener, the event triggering may or may not happen within the zone, because the third part library should also support the zone.js. Then only the code or the event listeners code will be triggered within the zone. If we badly need the change detection, I mean that needs to be captured by the third party libraries, then we should run that block of code in within the zone by using this zone.run command. And if the code is not needed, let's say we'll be using many set timeout and set interval, we don't need any change that needs to be performed. Just it's just a block of code or any like piece of there is no change of the DOM there. Then we can run outside of that Angular. But however, like we don't want to dependent on the zones.js entire in this application level. Then we can add this ng zone node in main.ts so that ng zone will be not captured, like ng zones will not be created in our application. But if we do this, then we have to detect changes manually by using on push detection strategy. This is in this way we can improve the performance of our application, because they will be simply creating input and parent child's components, right? But there will be no we are not aware like much does this cost any performance improvements. Even milliseconds or microseconds will be costing our improvements, our performance, right? So in this way we can achieve the performance issues as well in our application. Yeah, mm, pretty much done with my presentation. I think the time is also up. Yeah. Any questions so far?
I'm good.
I hope you got this concept in this change reduction, because this is very important in our Angular, because everything is going now. Like, is there any small update in our component class file which is updating in our template? That is not at all magic. uh, it's pure change reduction strategy. Yeah. Okay. If you're good, that's fine. If not, you can feel free to reach out to me for any questions. We can discuss. And also one thing I would like to say, and yesterday, like I saw an article called like a recent Angular version has been released, the signals concept, which is not zone dependent as well. I would like all of you to check that article, which is related to the signals, and it is quite interesting. I did not get much time to check that. Okay, signals in Angular. I think it is not fully implemented yet, I guess, but they're planning to release or so. That will be definitely helpful for larger applications. Yeah, I suggest you to check that article, signals in Angular. Okay. The juniors
Okay.
who joined this session, Manga, Nagaramya,
Yeah,
are you
Nuthana.
good? Are you
Yeah.
good? Did you get the concept?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'll stop my presentation then.
Okay. Yes, then. Thank you so much. So first of all, I would like to thank each and every participant, okay, and who showed interest in this session. And so on behalf of our team, Nuthana, I would like to thank you for presenting this topic.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
yeah. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me if there are any questions, not only regarding this change detection, any issues in the Angular. By it will be helpful, like if you reach out to me when you have like any encounter scenarios which you have not encountered yet. Okay, it's always welcome. I mean, doubts are always welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.